Welcome to our Management 6785 eBusiness Strategy Project. This project is put together by Jeffrey Gouge, Cody Hendricks, James McGee, and Michael Matillo. What we've done is we've taken a small business, a banking business, and we're looking at the consumer loan process and changing it from what would be an antiquated, primarily paper process and moving it into the digital age. Now, the overview of the company, it's an established but decentralized organization primarily in Florida. It has 8 different major markets stretching from Tallahassee to Tampa, Jacksonville, and further south past Orlando. The primary focus of the bank has been commercial lending since its inception, but due to increased competition with commercial markets, special lending groups, and hedge funds, etc., we're moving a strategic shift towards consumer lending. Now, unfortunately, because of our decentralized nature, the organization, we've got an awful lot of inefficiencies specifically for consumer lending, but not as bad for the commercial lending. Now, the current process, the overview for Small Bank of Florida, the application process is literally a physical application process where all documents are taken in-house by sales representatives and passed on to the respective loan agents. Now, before an application, it has to go to the underwriters, so literally every loan process, every document has to go to our physical location in Tampa. The underwriters have to score with a risk and benefit analysis on every level and look at the credit scores from there. There's no mandated or automated process for, acceptance or denial for any of them, so they all have to come in on a physical level. Now, the underwriters are obviously going to make recommendations on the creditworthiness of the applicant based on the histories and the projected, benefits of the loan itself. And all of those do have to go through the chief credit officer, which happens to be located in Jacksonville, but the physical location of all the paperwork is in Tampa, so it causes a little bit of a delay there. Now, each loan, of course, the final decision is rendered by the CCO, or Chief Credit Officer, and then it stands for either approval or denial. And that is the current process. Unfortunately, there are an awful lot of pain points that go along with the current process. Our geographic constraints only allow us to have access to the Florida market because we are a brick-and-mortar agency. So it all depends on face-to-face, so we're lacking the internet and web applications and applicants from other areas. Inefficiencies because everything is also involved with the humans interaction. You've always got that potential deficiencies as well as inefficiencies, errors, etc., that come along with just day-to-day human processing. Now, this, of course, leads to subpar customer service levels because the transference of information, delays, etc., can often cause communication to not be as high level or expectant levels as other agencies that are working with web-based applications. Now, and the last thing, because there's no formal tracking, not everything is on the digital level. We're not able to track the previous loans as quickly. The prior, how should we put it? The prior interactions that we've had with the consumers on the banking level. These are all the major pain points that we have to deal with. Now, our proposal for a Small Bank of Florida is developing a web-based credit application process which allows applicants to file everything online and digitally, making it a much more streamlined and accessible process. How this is going to come out are desired outcomes. Obviously, we're going to have an improved turnaround time, which reduction in communication barriers as well as inefficiencies in productivity because everything's digital. Improvements of profit margins and cutting expenses because you're cutting out everything from paper application process to even transferring documents from one branch to another is going to be removed. The geographic boundaries have basically have been lifted because we now have access to markets outside of Florida because the internet anyone with an internet connection can access our website and, of course, the bank. Now, this also increases our customer service level because we're going to be able to have almost two-way communication because of everything from, just email to, instant data, which is going to be transferred. Now, there also is the digital trail for tracking all the information, so you're going to know exactly who uploaded what, when it was uploaded, what might be missing, what isn't missing. That's all going to be there as well. And lastly, with a lot of the regulation that's come down over the last few years, the transparency aspect, whether you're talking about Sarbanes-Oxley or anything from the Frank-Dodd Act, that's all going to be in place. So we're essentially covering ourselves on every level. Now, we've come up with a Visio chart of how the current process flows versus how the proposed process is going to flow. As you can see from the slides here, everything, it looks relatively streamlined, but each block in the Visio happens to be a human point of contact where the documents physically have to be looked over as well as processed. There's no mid-level, low-level, or high-level credit scoring that is available, whereas documents go from one manager to the credit officer to the underwriter, and each one is going to be, has to go through what you call basically a human step process to whether it's approval or denial. And the second slide basically asks or lets you know if the loan was approved, where it goes, are there any reviews to determine if an override is appropriate for one loan that may or may not have been denied, and then versus the ones that are already, agreed to and, signed off on or declined. The 2B process, as we proposed, looks a little bit more in-depth, but it's a lot easier to follow when the credit application is actually placed through the internet-based application, and it's moved through the web interface, and then it communicates directly with credit reporting agencies, and depending on the credit score will depend exactly where it goes. Automatically, credit scores of 500 or below, that generates an automatic decline email to the client, essentially saying that at this time we're unable to process your loan. Credit scores of 700 or above essentially are given the go-ahead as long as there's no mitigating circumstances, and that is sent for approval. Mid-level credit scores between 501 and 699 have to actually be reviewed by the underwriters to be signed off on, making sure that the loan, the return on the investment is worth the bank's time. The second portion of the slide actually shows how the request will either be approved, the emails are generated, and the process for reviewing mid-level credit scores goes versus the auto-generated emails for the clients that are automatically accepted. Now, this is basically the end process of how we've created the new strategy, going from paper to all automated and internet-based. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, and he's going to explain exactly how the application works that we've created for the bank.
My name is Jeff Gouch, and this is our team's application. The way to get to our prototype application, you can get to it from my, right now it's hosted on my servers here at my house. So it's my last name.homeserver.com/eBusiness. We'll take you into the application. Right now it's a prototype. Right now we just have the application process and a link to all of our work that we've done on our team, as well as who's on our team. So it consists of me, Cody, Sean, and Michael, who was just talking. This is a link to all of our websites and our blogs we've actually created for this class. This application is actually an ASP.NET application. It is actually a working application as well as a prototype right now. There's actually a side of it which I'll get to, which is not going to be shown here in the demo. But what we're going to do is walk through an application. And it actually is a working application. It's running on a web server right now on my home server here. It also has a SQL backend database, which is actually working as well, which shows all the different applications that were scored. And I'll go through the database real quick as well once we get through the demo of the application. So let's start one up. So the working prototype here, here's your basic application. We have 4 tabs. Right now we broke it into 4 different sections to make it easier on users to fill it out. That way they can save it bit by bit and come back and go into it whenever they want it as they see needed. So I'm going to fill out some basic borrower information. So let's fill out this test guy. And we'll make his middle name Test as well. We'll give him a fake phone number, fake social. Give him a fake birthday. We'll give him a fake driver's license. And then we'll go through and basically fill out all the form fields. This is his driver's license information. So we'll give him fake dates, fake address. He's been living there for 10 years. Right now, he's paying $500 on his home. Month, he rents it. His previous address, we can make that. Let's make that. He lived downtown before. So at this point, what we do is, since this is a working application, I would hit save. And what it's actually doing in the background, and we put a little, this is a jQuery Bootstrap slider up here which shows the progress. And what this did actually is it actually saved a new application, and it saved it to the database, so it can do it parts at a time. So if you want to come back, the user could actually log off here right now and come back to the application, and the first part would be done. You can always go back and review the information as well. But what we'll do is we'll continue with it. And just to show you, actually we'll continue with the demo real quick. So who does the user work? Who does this test guy work for? We'll say he works at the university, which is their address there. What does he do there? He's a tester, and he's also been working there for 5 years. How much does he make? Well, at the university, over 10, he makes $20,000. And let's save. As you can see, the slider up top, I'll move in and work, slide over. Now it's on the credit application side, so how much does he want to take a loan out for? Oh, that's another good point that I just came up with. This whole application does have validation checks in it. So this is looking for a credit request number. If I put all kinds of other stuff in here, it's going to try to validate it. Also, if I try to hit the next button, it's actually going to try to validate the fields that are required and telling you, hey, something wrong in there, you need to fix this before you continue. So that's another great improvement from the paper process, which our bank had currently, to where if there was an error in the application like this, what would actually have to happen is that physical person that's reviewing the loan would actually have to go back to the applicant and fill that in. So he's looking for $100,000 and he wants to pay it off, 30-year loan. And specific purpose of the loan, testing, it's here for testing, and this is for testing. So at this point, there's a decision here, and this is one of the things. So will this loan have a co-applicant? Right now, if I were to hit next and it says and it's checked, it would actually go to the co-borrower information. If it doesn't, what it's actually going to do is jQuery up here, this animation is actually going to say, oh, well, if it doesn't, and you hit finish, now the button, as you can tell, hit change to finish. You're done with your application, and we'll go ahead and start reviewing it. For the purposes of the demo, I'm going to go through and hit check like we do have a co-borrower and move to the next slide just to show you that that is actually working as well. So I'm going to put Michael as my co-borrower, make him the person. And what we'll do for now, the co-borrower stuff isn't required, but we'll give him test stuff. 555113333. And we'll put him and say he's born on 1/1. Actually, no, we won't fill any of this stuff out. So all this will say to the database. We'll pretend like we filled all this in for time's sake. I'm going to go ahead and hit save and finish. What this is actually going to do, and this will actually be a good demonstration here, what this did is it gone to the credit review screen as according to our process that we had. From here, basically what would happen is, so this one is a reviewer. So what this would actually do, if I were to hit continue as per the application would actually go, and this would actually not be the applicant who's going to see this screen. This would actually be the back-end credit reviewers, or technically the loan reviewers, who are going to go in, and as you can see, the choice is up to them. So at this point, what it would actually do is, in the process, we have a couple review steps, and these review steps would be here, to where we go through the review process from the first reviewer, and then make sure that the risk is okay. So what we'll do right now is, since this is a prototype, we're going to demo that, okay, well, that we reviewed it, and the person came back and said yes. So if they say yes, the application has been accepted, and at this point, the email has been sent to the applicant saying that this has actually been approved. So let's pretend and go back and say that the reviewer said no. So say the applicant put in the information, and the reviewer then logged into the application, looked it over, and said, oh, there's something wrong with this. Let's say no, let's decline this one. The application would have been denied, and that email would have also been sent to the applicant according to the email address that was entered into the form. So a couple points here I wanted to make on the application, actually. I'm actually going to go back for a minute just to show that each step does work. We have a couple different things saved in the database here that I can demo. So the first one, we'll pretend that we're going to go back, and this is where the review screen now. This person, we're going to review theirs. As you can see, their credit score came back at 750. So according to our process, we shouldn't be seeing the reviewer screen at this point. So this is show that it's a working application, and this is right. We hit continue, and as you can see, this has been contingently approved, and that this should go forward. And just to make sure, as our process, since it's contingent, we're going to go ahead and have those reviewers review it, and they're going to say yes and be accepted. Same thing, going back to this screen, we have another entry saved in our database here for somebody that had terrible credit. So when we go look at theirs, you can see that their credit score was actually 450. And if we go and continue here, it's actually, according to our process, anybody with below a 500, we actually automatically decline. So this is just showing that back end. This could all be, this is just a prototype, but this could all be done via web services. So at this credit review screen, we could be getting this credit score back from the web service that our application actually sent over to one of the credit bureaus. They looked up their information and automatically came back and said, well, this person's credit score is this, and you guys decide what you're going to do with it. So from here, what we actually did is we actually saved that to the database. I'll show you a quick overview of the database. We have, I'll refresh this real quick. Basically, we have an application, and what this does is it links an application to an applicant, a co-borrower, an employer, and a credit, which was each one of the tabs that we had in the application. So, for example, the one we just filled out was the most recent one. It was application number 5. It was the credit ID of number 4. So the way the database actually links this up is if we were to actually look at the credits, it would actually link it to this row here. So as you can tell from what we went over, we requested 100,000. So this is actually showing that the application worked. It saved it to the database, so all this is being saved in a working application. One more thing I do want to demo before we actually end the presentation. As you saw, everything kind of changed colors as we went forward. This presentation was written using a technology called Bootstrap. What Bootstrap allows us to do is basically open and close our screen and fit to mobile devices automatically. So as you can see here, as I make my screen more smaller like a phone would display, what it's going to do is it's going to basically adjust the application dynamically to show you the screen. So this would work on a mobile application as well. So as you can see, the menu that was up top here, as you can see for wider screens, it will show that. But if you're on a phone, what it'll do is it'll collapse that down into a menu that would actually still work on a phone. Tables don't show well on phones, as all of us know. But just wanted to show that that is another part of the application that is working. So our application is actually mobile ready as well. So that concludes our presentation. If you guys have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and post this video to the discussion board. If you have any questions or comments, feedback, let me know. Put it in the discussion board. But for now, that wraps up our presentation on behalf of Group 6. Thank you for listening.